Hello and welcome to the Cars.co.za podcast. It's been a little while since we've had a podcast on the channel, and I'm very excited to resurrect this concept, and I'm very excited to have a special guest with us today, Miss Wendy Knowler. How are you?
I'm good, Ciro. Nice to see you face to face for a change.
I know, it's so nice. If you haven't come across Wendy's work, or if you're not familiar with the name, she's an extremely active consumer journalist. Thousands and thousands of South Africans have benefited from her expertise and her efforts over the years in dealing with big corporates who don't want to play ball very nicely.
Very well said.
And I thought, I'm dealing with a situation at the moment where good friends of mine are trying to get a refund from a car dealership. And it's difficult to advise them. And I thought to myself, right, we've got this great relationship with Wendy. We're very lucky to have her as a consumer awards judge in our Cars Awards. And I thought, let's get Wendy in here and really chat about difficult things, how to get a refund from a car dealership, what to do if you've bought a lemon, what to do if you need to take a dealer to the motor ombudsman. These are all quite tricky things. I tried to read through the CPA last night, Wendy. I feel like I'm getting there.
Yeah, it's not easy, especially when applied to cars, as you've probably discovered.
Yeah. So I think let's start maybe with the very basics. From what I understand, private sale, private citizen to private citizen, the CPA does not apply.
No, that's voetstoets.
So
and
that's it.
There's another situation if you buy from an auction.
Okay.
Which I wouldn't advise for that reason.
Oh.
You can't take it for a test drive. You basically got the information that's present. You can look at the car or whatever, but how risky is that? Auctioneers would probably disagree, but what is indisputable is that you can't take the car for a test drive, and it is voetstoots. There is no comeback.
Sure.
So I would say it's great if you're in the trade and you know what you're about and you can do as many checks as you can. But if you're a member of the public and you aren't that sussed when it comes to cars, it's really a very big risk.
That's a bit like gambling,
Yep.
Okay.
Not just cars, anything you buy in an auction. It's the CPA has a whole section on it, but it's essentially a voetstoots deal.
Okay. So the Consumer Protection Act of 2019 basically was engineered by government, by legislature, to help protect the consumer in cases where they've been wronged or they've bought a defect product. And like you said, like we were just saying off air, it's okay if you buy a microwave, right? Because that's maybe 1,000 rand, and
even less.
Yeah, and checkers or whoever will just be like, oh, you know what? Give us the microwave back. Here's 1,000 rand, or have another one. Now we're talking about 600,000-700,000 million rand objects, which you might be taking home.
And it doesn't work quite like that. So in essence, I wish that there was a separate section under the CPA that applied to dodgy cars, or not dodgy, but defective cars. So the CPA says, and it applies to all products bought new and used, is that every product has an implied, in other words, whether the seller likes to acknowledge it or not, it's an implied warranty of 6 months, during which time, if the product breaks, to put it bluntly, or becomes unfit for purpose in some way, you cannot derive the full value of your purchase price out of this product. You, as the consumer, have the right, and this didn't exist before the CPA going 10 years ago, you have the right to return it for your choice of a refund, replacement, or repair. Which sounds great with a car, but it doesn't work like that in practice.
And just to be clear, this is if you've bought a new or used car from a dealership.
And any other product. People often think, well, it was used, so I don't have any comebacks. Well, no, how it works is whatever you're buying, let's stick to cars because we're talking about cars today. If there are any defects, they should be disclosed to you.
Yes.
The CPA is very big on disclosure, and this is often an issue with cars because down the line, a few months in, the buyer will notice some scrappy paintwork or something goes wrong with the car, something major, and then they do the investigation. So that's fail number one, is to do your research after you bought and do a Dekra test or whatever, and then it emerges that the car was in a front end collision and The dealership certainly in all the cases that come to me, says, well, we weren't aware of that. To our knowledge, this was the former owner said that it was just a one minor fender bender, and that was it. So,
sorry to interrupt you. That seems to me to be quite one of the biggest loopholes, right? Is that the dealer can just claim that they were not aware of the defect. And I mean, is the onus then, is the law then, in that sort of situation, on the dealer side or on the consumer's side, if the dealer claims ignorance?
The dealer can claim ignorance, and to some extent, they could be right in that it's very difficult for them to get that information. They can get information on the service history and the like, but to actually get accident information is a bit of a gap between the insurers, and TransUnion doesn't have that information anymore, or doesn't share it with the industry.
Okay.
It's quite a long story in itself, but in the cases that, certainly the many cases I've dealt with, is that the buyer has very easily, through a Dekra report, through doing their own research, to getting hold of the seller, they are very easily able to ascertain that this car was in a bad smash. Actually, in a case I'm dealing with now, was off the road for 2 years.
Oof.
So what does that tell you? It took them that long to get it right.
To sort it out.
Why else would a car, it was a 2013 Audi. Anyway, so the number one advice that I would give is to have that car professionally checked out. There's Dekra and there's some other people that I would recommend, highly recommend. For a few $100, you just, because people, as in the case I'm dealing with now, which went all the way to the tribunal, he paid for that Dekra report afterwards when the first problem started emerging. It was within the 6 months CPA warranty period. So he was able, as a layperson, to find that out. The dealer produced their in-house, was a major brand, produced their in-house quality check certification thing they did. It was just ridiculous. It didn't even apply to the car. It applied to a car many years older. There was nothing on it that linked to this particular car. The tribunal found the person within the company that they couldn't call him that did the check and the certification. Oh no, he's retired. This was quite a major brand, major dealership. So we're not talking about the little corner car salesman. So gosh, we got into a tangent. So essentially, now you're within your 6 months. So that's a very golden period of the car. You actually got to act fast if something goes wrong. After 6 months, you're down to, if you took an aftermarket warranty, if you got on a used car, and obviously on a new car, that warranty, the manufacturer's warranty would still be valid. But you're at the dealership and the manufacturer's mercy. So first 6 months is crucial. But what happens in practice, Ciro, is, in my experience, and I do have some sympathy with the argument that we're not going to give you a new car if there's, chipped paintwork, or your upholstery's coming loose, there's a few stitches coming loose, or there's a rattle in your aircon. The industry would become unworkable if that was the case. Okay, all right, well, here's all your money back. And of course, with cars, it's so complicated because they're financed mostly, and so the bank comes into play, and the deposit you paid, and all the rest. So only mostly in the case of safety critical issues such as brakes, steering, where if the dealerships had one bite at the cherry, the repair cherry, and they haven't fixed the problem, then certainly if the dealership didn't want to refund you at that point, or replace the car, if you took that case to the motor industry ombud, I would rate your chances as pretty good of
getting a refund, of the
ombud saying absolutely this car needs to be taken back. But if it's, which is what I normally get, it's a gearbox problem with this, and the aircon's not working properly, those kinds of things, the dealership will always say we reserve our right to repair. even in the first 6 months, because they just won't. And if that case went to the Ombud, they would probably support the dealership's contention. They'll say it's the component that's gone wrong that we will, in terms of CPA, that we will now repair or replace, and we've done that. So we are within the law. That's why I say I wish there was someone would draft an addendum to the CPA Section 56 on right of return that applied
specifically.
Yeah. Even then, it would be difficult, I suppose, to be specific enough for people to know in their particular circumstance what their rights are. But that's, in my experience, I keep having to qualify what I'm saying, but I do take a lot of cases up directly with the Ombud, and I've known him during my whole 20 plus years career as a consumer journalist, so I bounce things off him a lot. So I'm pretty. I think I've got a pretty good idea how they approach these matters. Yeah,
I'm sure you probably have some of the best clarity on the issue of anyone in the country at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we should strive for some clarity for the audience, because there's a lot of terms and organizations and bodies which you might then have to deal with should you be trying to get a refund or a repair out of a dealership. So MIOSA, Motor Industry Ombudsman of South Africa,
right.
They are commissioned by the NCC. They have the expertise to deal with car cases.
Yeah, they're the I forget the term, but they're the authorized dispute resolution body, ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. So if you went to the NCC directly with a car complaint, they would direct you immediately to MIOSA.
Okay.
So they have the authority to, under the Consumer Protection Act, to look at whether you have a valid claim or not.
Okay, so the NCC being the National Consumer Commission, the CPA, Consumer Protection Act. There's also a term I'd like to get into called voetstoots, which I think a lot of South Africans have heard but might not entirely understand what it actually means. So just to go back to MIOSA, is a MIOSA ruling, is it legally binding? Does it have the same weight as, say, a court ruling?
No. So if MIOSA's ruling is ignored by the dealership involved, which happens often, they just, whatever, do your worst. Then either they kick it up to the NCC, the commission, and the commission decides to take it to the tribunal, which is the National Consumer Tribunal, and that has their rulings have the same weight as a court ruling.
Okay.
And they can impose fines and do. Whether they get paid or not is another story, but that's the big daddy of your consumer protection mechanisms.
Okay,
there's nothing really after that. I suppose you could go to the Concourt or something, but consumer tribunal is it. In some cases, the NCC will take it for the complainant and represent them and whatever. In other cases, they don't, in which case you as an individual have the right to take it yourself. You can either represent yourself or you can pay for legal representation, which is expensive.
So that was actually my next question, is for the average cash-strapped consumer, let's assume now you've gone through MIOSA, the dealership is still not playing ball. Now you're going to the National Consumer Tribunal, assuming you haven't lost the will to live and your sanity. And
and I'm very grateful for those who haven't, because I like this case I'm working on at the moment. I'm about to approach the dealership for comment. It makes for fascinating insight into what, in the worst case scenarios, these dealerships do with these dodgy deals, what they hide, how badly they treat consumers when the inevitable problems do manifest and they come back and they want recourse. And let's be clear, I'm talking about the extreme cases. I'm not saying every dealership behaves like this. In my line of work, though, I'm dealing with exposing the cases that are the bad ones.
Okay.
But if you read the commission rulings that apply to cars, it is, maybe I should write a column just about that and pull out the nuggets, because it's very juicy stuff. It's very juicy stuff.
So for a cash-strapped consumer, assuming you've got some fight left in you can represent yourself.
You can.
This. Okay. And then you need to really have your ducks in a row, all your paperwork, and you sit in front of the tribunal and you say, right, this is my story.
Yes, as this man, his name is Arno, he's a Cape Townian. And in reading the Commission's lengthy ruling, they end up saying that he was such an incredibly credible, together
complainant.
I was looking for the word. Applicant, I suppose, in that case. An applicant and respondent when you get to tribunal level. And conversely, the respondent, being the dealership with their legal representation, were absolutely not at all.
Even though they had paid legal help.
Yes, because the facts, the evidence didn't stack up. I mean, the evidence showed that they had acted in extremely bad faith the whole way along. But here's the point, Jared. You ask, how easy is it for somebody to get a refund for a car? Well, in cases where the dealership has just dug in their heels and absolutely will not countenance the thought of giving this person their money back, extremely difficult to impossible. So this guy, a few months ago now, got this ruling in his favor. Finally, he went through, as we said, all the mechanisms.
Lengthy,
and the dealership still hasn't refunded him, because now, first of all, they said there was a spelling error in the ruling, and now they've said, oh, but Mayosa will support if they do take a car back, and this is a big button. It's worth mentioning this. There's a formula they work on, and don't ask me what it is. It's complicated, but there's a formula they'll work on to subtract from your refund the use of the car. So the argument is you would have had to use some other car, if not this one. And so they take your mileage and they do a little sum and come up with a figure that they then subtract from your refund. And I have a problem with that, because often that person only clocks up that amount of mileage because they've been fighting with the dealership for months to get them to take the car back. And meanwhile, the mileage is mounting, which, is prejudicial to them should a refund happen. But anyway, in this case, the tribunal ruling stands, and it wasn't the issue of usage of car didn't come up in the ruling as far as I can see. And maybe it was felt that under the circumstances, all the kicking, pulling this dealership through the process, kicking and screaming the entire way, false promises. They said, if you can prove that this car wasn't an accident before we sold it to you, we will refund you. And he proved it. And then they still wouldn't. Just bad faith stuff like that. Yeah. So now he's in the fight to get them to uphold, to
goodness me.
Yeah, to what's the word? Honor the ruling. So yes, in some cases, and I've had others. I have one case that's quite a few years old now. It was hailed as the landmark case when it came to cars that went wrong. And she was sold a lemon, also here in the Cape. Her name was Hunley, I'll never forget. And she bought a Passat, which looked lovely, but was pretty much a non-runner.
From a decent franchise dealership?
No.
From a corner, dodgy.
And also went all the way to the tribunal, and the order was that they had to pay a massive fine. And
wow, fine as well.
Yeah, no, they can pay. That is the CPA. It's R1 million or
okay.
Another formula, but it's a lot. No.
Yeah, there's some risk to the. Yeah.
On paper, she never, to this day, has got her money back.
Goodness me.
And I've tried to find out if this guy ever paid the fine. I don't think so, because he closed up. But what's he doing? He's flogging cars on Facebook. So, and there's been another one as well, and I report on these cases a lot just to say, I'm sure in some cases people have got their money back, but in the case where a dealership or a one-man car salesman really, really doesn't want to,
I mean,
he just doesn't. He or she just don't. They just don't.
It's funny. I'm Italian, obviously, and you grow up, and like my late dad would have said something like, "There's ways and means."
Yes, well, you can understand in a situation like this, but then Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, that's the thing. I mean, what if you've gone through every single official body, every sort of, court in the land, so to speak of, and these guys still will not literally go into their banking and transfer the money into your account.
It's it's a pathological thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But this case that I keep talking about, I keep mentioning, is a franchise dealership of a very major entrenched brand in this country, and poor Arno hopefully eventually get his money back. But for now, the rest of as many people that read my work and listen to my shows are going to know what they did, and I'm going to quote very liberally from that damning ruling by the tribunal.
Well, that's maybe
so that's some justice, but you can imagine. I don't know. I suppose to do the work I do, I would have to have quite an overdeveloped sense of justice. But as somebody in Arno's position, obviously he has as well. David and Goliath, as I said, going on his own. But to imagine you think you finally got to the finish line and that this ruling went your way and quite stridently in your favor, and now months later they just like, nah.
So I mean, hearing all your stories, it seems like the CPA is maybe a bit toothless in extreme circumstances. Would you agree with that? Is the CPA fine? It's just that humans are, not acting.
Well, I think, look, what's the ultimate sanction? I suppose you could be sent to jail or your business closed down, and that isn't provided for by the CPA in terms of recourse. So, I kept saying to the commission on that Hunley case, where she was also awarded, the ruling went her way and pay her back. It was under 100,000, but it was a lot of money for her. It was about 94,000 or something like that. I said, well, do you prosecute? Yes, we've got the means to, but it's never happened. And I know I haven't checked for the last, really since lockdown, but I know for sure because I kept in touch with her that if she did get her money, she would have told me. So I hate to say it, but and we certainly don't want to give motor dealers this idea, but in the 3 cases that I know of, no, sorry, 2. When I took up the case on behalf of the other chap, too many cases, I went to the dealership. It was also it was a franchise dealership, and I said, "How have you not paid this man?" And they said, "Oh, we didn't get told by the commission. We will pay him now," and they paid him. That's right, because a little consumer journalist got involved.
Oh, there we go.
So I will never know when or how, what would have happened otherwise. But that first one, the guy that just closed his business and started selling on Facebook, he has never paid her.
Sure. I mean, damage to reputation is quite serious for a dealership, I suppose.
So that small guy obviously didn't feel that he had much of a reputation to uphold. That's why it's always much easier for me to take up cases involving the big guys, because they most definitely have a reputation they want to uphold, and they like the world to think that they abide by all the relevant legislation and act in good faith, and all the mission statements about their customers and all that is very easy for me. And I love to go into their websites and pull out their mission statements and hold it up against how they treated a particular customer and say, there's something wrong here. But the smaller guys, I mean,
they can duck and dive. I
get more car complaints than any other kind, and travel cancellations, wedding cancellations rival them, I think, during the hard lockdown, but mostly. And when I see it's a small dealership, and in some cases we could have another whole show about fraudulent ones where the dealership doesn't exist at all. They just somebody in front of a laptop who's borrowed the identity of a bona fide dealership.
Oh, wow.
And people go, shame, they buy up front, can you believe it? No test drive, no see the car. It's a nice deal. And they arrive and they're told, don't come today, we're doing an auction.
Sure.
That's out and out fraud. But when I see the name of a non-franchise, sort of one of the many in this country, people think they're getting a better deal and now it's gone wrong, I just think, this is so hard for me to get involved, because they don't don't care about publicity. It's so much harder.
So I suppose the lesson there for our listeners is try buy from a nice, big, shiny, glass-fronted dealership because they've got more to lose.
They've got more to lose. It certainly makes my work a lot easier should it come to it. I mean, they as I say, there are some let's call them, for the benefit of the industry, extreme cases where things go wrong and where there is extreme bad faith, to put it kindly. It's not to say it doesn't happen, but they have lots of they have this public reputation. They have franchisors to answer to, and it's serious for them to be exposed, and they don't like it at all.
No, sure.
But there's apparently, people have got this conception that it's going to be that they'll get a better deal. And also, I mean, some of these big guys, even their used sections won't sell you. They don't have 10-year-old cars on the floor, which people can afford, or 6-year-old cars or whatever. So that's where people go, either to private sales, or to the smaller guys, where you're going to get the older cars at sort of 100,000 or less purchase price, and that's the reality.
There can be major issues,
and it breaks my heart, because the stories of that money saved up and what it was for, to start a small business, to I've had stories of mothers, parents buying for children that have comorbidities for COVID, and just can't bear the thought of them sitting in taxis and whatever. So scraped up, bought this 80,000-90,000 rand car that's just turned into a complete dud, and it's just a complete money sapper to now try and
repair it.
So if you're going to buy one of those, buy one that's so bad it's going to break down in 6 months, that its problems will be apparent within 6 months when there is the CPA, and maybe you'll be able to get use that to your advantage, either through Motor Industry Ombudsman or someone like myself or whatever. But once you get into month 7, the battle is so much huger.
So, I mean, full disclosure from a Cars.co.za perspective is that dealerships are our business. We have thousands of dealership clients.
That's why I've been careful to say there's some lovely ones who do amazing work.
And
I'm just talking about the ones that go wrong.
No, sure. And I suppose what I wanted to point out is we've got millions of South Africans coming through our site every day, putting through hundreds of thousands of leads, which must lead to hundreds or not, if not thousands of sales every month. And often what happens is, or not often, but because we were sort of the link to the car or the dealership, sometimes someone will come back to us. But it doesn't happen as often as you might think, which makes me feel that most transactions happen honestly and that there's not too much recourse. And that makes me think that the majority of car dealers out there, at least the ones who work with us, are honorable people doing good business. There are instances, I mean, for instance, my colleague bought a lovely Audi Allroad from a smaller dealership out in Belleville. He's had no issues, and that was a good purchase.
I love that.
Yeah, they are lovely. Yeah. But good friends of mine bought a Opel Mokka from a dealership, a big franchise dealership with a big name. Within the first 2 weeks, the engine started making a horrible noise.
I've just got one of those complaints. I wonder if it's the same one.
Maybe it's the same.
Yeah.
And then, so back to the dealership. The dealership said, we're so sorry. They gave them a courtesy car. So good. So far, so good. The car was off the road for a while. The dealership said they'd fixed it. Car came back. Opel Mokka came back. Within another 2 weeks or so, it had broken down. Side of the road, flatbed, that sort of thing.
Within how many weeks of purchase?
Now we're probably a month into the purchase. Yeah. So back to the dealership, another courtesy car. We're terribly sorry. We'll try to fix it. This has now happened. This is now 2 breakdowns and 1 return of the vehicle, courtesy car each time. Now they've asked for a refund, and the response from the dealership has been that you can choose anything on our floor to the same value as the car, but we're not giving you your money back. So, I mean, that doesn't sound to me like, it seems like it could have gone worse for them. This dealer, I think, could have played more hardball.
Yes, and many do. It's not the same Mokka, by the way. So my take on that is that's an acceptance that the car is not fit for purpose in terms of Section 56 of the 55, holding handles 56 of the CPA, and because they're saying we'll replace, right? The 3 R's of redress are refund, replace, or repair. But the CPA gives your mate, the consumer, the right to choose the recourse.
Yes.
So they would be within rights to say, no, we want a refund. Bearing in mind that usage formula could be applied, but they've only had the car for such a short time, and it's been back to the dealership a couple of times,
mileage.
so there's very little mileage.
Yeah.
So I would say if they've lost faith in the dealership, and it sounds like they've been quite good. Often many times people have to fight for a courtesy car under those circumstances, so they sound more on the reasonable side. But if he had lost faith, I would say push for a refund, because it looks like it's warranted. But given the whole schlep with the bank, if it's financed and all of that, if they're happy to give another car a go, I would say that's probably the easiest option for everybody, unless that car also goes bad, in which case I would say let's hope it goes wrong in the first 6 months, and then definitely take your money and try somewhere else.
It does seem to me like you can. The best thing I think to do, and the best advice I suppose that we could maybe give, is to really do your homework on the vehicle. Spend a bit of money on an inspection.
Couldn't agree more.
You mentioned Dekra earlier, so for our audience, that's Dekra. It's an independent inspection house. There's branches all over the country.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I priced it last 200-point check, I think was 1,600 Rand, which is
that's the biggie.
Yeah, that's the big one.
And I would certainly go for that. If you think of 1,600 Rand in the context of how long you're going to pay your car off for, and the peace of mind it'll bring.
Yeah.
I would say definitely.
Yeah.
It's like I say, if you're going to buy a house, pay someone to do those professional home inspections. Big ticket items, definitely. Also, just things like you could go to if you're not buying from the brand dealership, then go to one of them. They're very helpful, and say, this is the registration, or this is the VIN number, whatever. Run through, tell me about the services. What are you picking up about this car? It's easily done, and
that's another great piece of advice.
Try and track, if it's a used car, try and track down the previous owner.
So basically what you're saying, let's say I've gone along to a Haval dealership and I'm buying an old Audi from them. I can get the VIN number of that Audi. I can phone an Audi center and say, please run this VIN for me, and they can get you a service report.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and it was a factor in this case that went all the way to the tribunal, the Audi bought from another brand. They didn't have service record. Two things. If you're buying a used car and the dealership hasn't got the spare key or the service book to give you, either of those things or both, walk away. It doesn't matter how much you're in love with this car, how many times you've pictured yourself doing XYZ in the car.
Yeah.
Please, that thing of we will get it to you, the former owner is just... walk away. In this tribunal ruling, which I am going to be quoting from liberally, one of the things I've highlighted to say is that the dealership in question said to the guy, no problem, we haven't got the service book, but come here, look on the computer. This is the service history. The tribunal, head of tribunal, forget the name, said that is extremely prejudicial to the consumer to do it like that. There must be a service book. So I've written 1,000 times, don't just walk away from the deal. So if this guy had done that, all the rest wouldn't have happened. As it turned out, only through his investigations after the purchase, when things were going wrong, did he discover that the car had actually stood idle for 2 years immediately after the crash.
Goodness
so
me.
You draw your own conclusions. But obviously there was a service missed there, an annual service. Doesn't matter if you're doing no mileage, you still got to change the oil and all the rest annually. So
Yeah, that's quite
it sounds overly simplistic, but I can't tell you how many complaints I get that has that element to it. The car went horribly wrong. There was no service book and no spare key. Now you try and sell a car without the spare key. And also, who's got the spare key to your car?
Yes, that's also a concern,
if it's not lost.
And keys are very expensive.
That's the next thing I'm going to say. They've got transponders. They're incredibly expensive to replace, thousands in many cases. So.
And just to circle back, it's so great chatting to you. I feel like we could chat all day.
But
we'll do that. I think we'll do this again, and I'd like to turn this into a series. But I think the last thing we should potentially wrap up this episode with is the term voetstoots, which loosely translates as is.
Yes.
So essentially, you're taking the car as it is, with all its defects. And something you mentioned to me off air, which was quite scary, is that this is often a clause buried in a dealer's contract.
The smaller dealers, the independent dealers mainly. And so when the car goes wrong, as in Hunley with their Passat and so many other cases that have landed up my inbox, the dealer will say to the complainant, but here's the contract you signed. And it literally says, there's no comebacks here. You accept that this car is in good order, and we will take no responsibility for any defects that are
Goodness me. So, I mean, that's quite a red flag in itself.
Well, here, two things. Number one, people don't read contracts. They're so busy looking at what is my monthly, what am I going to pay to the bank every month? Or if it's a cash deal, they just want the car. But mostly if it's finance, that people are not looking at how that figure was arrived at. So that's another topic for a whole half hour.
We could do,
the offer to purchase and what's hidden in there that people don't see, and how much it adds to the total cost of the car. It's for all the add-ons that afterwards people say, but I don't remember agreeing to that. It was just sign here, give me the key. So that's a very important one. I always say to people, send me your OTPs. It has to be valid by law for 5 days. Let me go over it. I will save you, don't even get me started on the road fee, but I will save you so much if this is the car that you want. So anyway, to get it back to the point, so they'll say, but you signed for it. Well, a contract that's not compliant with the law is invalid. You can't contract out of the law. The dealership can't decide, actually, you know what, I don't think the CPA is going to work for me, because I'm going to have to take responsibility for things that go wrong with the car. I just want the money, and bye-bye, I never want to see you again. It doesn't work like that. If you are doing business in this country, you have to do it according to the applicable laws, and the CPA applies to car sales, used and new. And you cannot put, if you're a dealer, if you or I wanted to sell our cars, fine. It is voetstoots, tata my chance, but not somebody that sells cars for a living.
So
they can't put that. And if they do, you as a consumer, well, first of all, read the contract and move on. Because if that's, you might legally, theoretically have the right to the recourse, but try and get it out of somebody like that. As we've been saying, that's a different story. But no, there is no such thing as a voetstoots deal with a dealer.
So I didn't understand. So just to be 100% clear, even if they've included this voetstoots clause in their contract,
it's invalid.
It's an illegal clause.
You may, as lawyers say, you may not contract outside of the law.
That's very interesting.
And that goes for all sorts of other, people with doing labor. CPA says you can cancel it for any time at any time for a full refund minus 1% of the purchase price, which is nothing. And you get dealers, shops selling furniture, clothes, whatever, saying no, I get you, but our terms are no.
I would say, my advice then, based on what you've just said to a consumer, would be, if a dealer is forcing you to sign a lengthy contract, I would say get a copy of it and take it home.
Yes.
Don't sit in the dealership, because they're potentially going to be, it's fine, and they'll explain a few things, but not everything, and then sign here.
As I said, the deal that they offer to you, the offer to purchase, is, in terms of the National Credit Act, valid for 5 business days.
Okay.
So that's specifically designed for consumers not to have to, on the back foot, in a hurry, without the financial sus to know what they're really getting into, commit to something that, when you do with a car, do you know that they're financing cars for up to 8 years now?
Sure. That's a long
because
long
cars
time.
have got so expensive, new cars mainly, but unless they do that, we can't, either that or a big balloon payment. But, you're committing to at least 5 or 6 years if you're financing the car. And you must do it in a hurry at a desk like this, in a dealership. It's a foreign environment. So, 5 days, 5 business days, take it to someone who does know. Email it to me. I love it when people do that. Just because I know what's at stake.
Yeah.
If they commit without knowing what they're committing to.
Yeah.
And people, and let's just put it out there for consumers as well. Protect yourself. Don't go into full-on investigative mode after you've bought the thing and something goes wrong. Spend the time before to protect yourself, to buy so that you get the right product from the right dealership that understands the CPA and has the ethics and morals and business culture to uphold it if things go wrong.
Wendy, this has been fantastic. Are you okay with us giving out your email address?
I am. If I can have a disclaimer. It's on my Twitter account. It's consumer@knowler.co.za. If I can just say that I am one freelance journalist working alone. I do not undertake to answer every email. I sometimes don't even get to open all of them because
you must have the
I
busiest
can't begin to. It's quite overwhelming. But if I can also say that. Those that put all the information I need to help into that initial email that I actually do see and do open and do want to take up. So, registration numbers, dates, full name of the dealership, just a proper documented complaint, have so much more chance of actually doing it. Because in that moment, I can send it off to, because either the manufacturer or the dealership or something and deal with it. If I have to say, okay, I could possibly help if you give me the... By the time they send it back, it could be in a deluge of email, and I don't even see it. I miss it completely, and then the chance is lost. And that is the reality of my work. So, a lot of people get really angry and sort of out me on Twitter to say, I emailed you last week and you haven't even given me the benefit of it.
Like, give me a break. I'm one person.
They don't. I don't know if people think I'm some kind of commission or something. I'm one freelance journalist just trying to do the best I can. So,
and you're doing
sorry to sound prickly, but it's probably the downside of my job, the expectation that I can't fully meet.
No, you are great at what you do, and as I said when we started the show, I'm sure thousands of South Africans are very grateful for your efforts as well.
Thank you.
And we're very grateful for you being here, and thank you very much to our audience for watching. We will put all the links that Wendy and I have spoken about in the description below, so MyOSA and a link to the CPA. It's very easy to find on the government website. We'll put a link to Dekra as well, so you can use that service as well. And Wendy, as I said, I feel like we could do this all day, but
I certainly could, but the inbox awaits.
Yes, a 30, 40, 50 minute on video on YouTube is quite a thing.
Is that how long we've been talking?
I'm not entirely sure, but it's been wonderful. So I think let's do this again. And there's lots to talk about. I mean, we could even go into the financial side of stuff, which is also very interesting and very tricky and very complicated.
Insurance.
The insurance side of things.
That. The SUVs are going to cost you more. Because it could potentially go off-road. Potentially being the operative word.
Alrighty, so let's wrap it up there. And thank you from myself and the team for your time.
It's been fun.
It has been very much. And check out the rest of our videos on our YouTube channel. We're actually, interestingly, we're approaching our 500th video, which is quite exciting. And if you haven't subscribed, do give us a subscribe there. And Wendy and myself will be back chatting more consumer issues. Alrighty, thanks very much for watching. Did you know that we also sell really awesome car-themed merchandise? Check out our range of custom t-shirts and prints at our online store now. Simply click on the square box on your screen and we'll take you there, or the link is in the description below. Thanks for watching.